You're about to listen to our conversation with Adrian Mcdonagh, the co-founder of hireful. We spoke about why business owners often get their first hire wrong, how you stay at the leading edge of trends such as AI, and the litmus test for the ideas worth implementing. What does it mean to make hireful the most helpful recruitment company? And I suppose that explains your job title of Chief Helper?
Yeah, Chief Helper, I guess, is a bit of a marketing opportunity when you change it on LinkedIn. Yeah. And you get some nice comments. It also means when I'm out there doing like helpful stuff, then people maybe understand it and feel comfortable to maybe reach out and ask for more, because I can explain my job and say my job is to just go out there into the marketplace, provide lots of content, engage people, and just be helpful. And they know they can, do you want to jump on a call? I'll jump on a call with you. And we're not a consultancy firm, so I'm not charging you for every half hour or anything like that. So hopefully the Chief Helper thing puts people at ease. I suppose how we ended up being this helpful company is we started as a recruitment agency. I guess we'll get into that. That's got a very clear structure, and maybe a lot of clients keep you at arm's length. So when we moved more into services and then software, we actually just wanted to do more and more. It was great to be, the customers calling us and wanting to engage with us. So although we had set services, we were always being asked to do more things, and hence we did online recruitment advertising, and people were asking us, well, could you help us with all these applicants? And that's where we got into software. And we've just leaned into it. And I think being helpful is sort of a bit of a superpower for a lot of companies. And in this networked world, it's commercially viable because it means lots and lots of referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose you've touched on it there, but what is the importance of being kind of customer focused, and how much does being customer focused underpin what you do at hireful?
Well, I think it's really nice as well. We've got a really good culture and our staff like work. We've just done our employee engagement survey yesterday. It was released. I just saw some quick, we always get nervous, had a quick look at the stats. So I think firstly, being a helpful company, our staff really like working there because they get to like lots of, there's always customers that have a few struggles and stuff, sure. But largely it is out there, you're helping people. So it just feels really great. People enjoy doing it. I enjoy my job. I go to bed at night thinking about, okay, how can I produce a new report? How can I do it in a very lean way to sort of maybe, how can I produce a new tool or something like that customers can engage with? They can get some sort of an individualized report back that helps them to achieve, a key recruitment goal or something. It's all of those types of things, sort of scaling up that help, because a lot of the helpful stuff we do, we can't charge for. So it's like, well, we can't put too many people on that. So then it's like, how do we deliver? So we do all that, hopefully win lots of friends, build a great reputation, and then like just generally good things happen.
Yeah, I think George, our producer, he's a point in case for this. He talks really highly of all the help that you've given him over the years. And you've touched on it, I suppose, but is there clear benefits to the bottom line by being nice?
It would be interesting to see that 30 years ago or something, whether that answer would have been different. I think today, definitely, because it's a very networked world. When someone goes out to buy recruitment software, I'd say every single time now, they always ask at least one person. They might ask several people. They ask their network. We're aware of a few online communities, like Facebook groups and stuff, and we're not in those groups, but we constantly hear when someone puts a recommendation in, like 3, 4, 5 people are recommending our company. And then we've got a very specific positioning statement really for us, because lots of software does different things, and there's some great competitors we've got in the marketplace. But I guess our sort of, at the moment, our USP, we're building a couple of others, but is really that we're the guys that will go further and help you. When it comes to like the AI stuff that's coming around the corner, we're the guys that's like, okay, well, our customers they're not going to be the early adopters. They might need a bit more of an arm around their shoulder and just to be helped with how do you embrace this in a safe way? Because it's coming, you need to sort of deal with it. You can't just bury your head in the sand, and we are that partner that can help them.
Yeah. Looking back now, I suppose, a bit, 25 years, I suppose, this year. You started the business a year after you left uni. How have things changed in your approach to business over that time? And how has the business evolved? Because obviously you started out as a recruitment company and now you're a software company. Can you explain those pivots?
Yeah, so I definitely would say initially it was just fun running a business. I would go talk to my friends who had just left university and got jobs, and I was running a business. And to be honest, I didn't take it anywhere near seriously enough. We'll talk maybe later about mentors. I wish I'd have had one then. In regards to the pivots, I found, running recruitment, I do a thing for a while, like running a recruitment agency, very exciting, learn how to do it. And then, it is quite a straightforward business. I don't want to be rude to recruitment agency businesses, but it's a relatively easy to understand business. You can be a real expert as a recruitment consultant, but the business is pretty straightforward. And I think I just needed something new. So, I'm always looking, I'm always researching. It's probably my nature. And we come across recruitment advertising. So back in 2005, lots of people were advertising still in the local press. That was getting diminishing returns. Job boards we knew were really driving stuff and starting to be much more cost effective. But a lot of customers haven't done that leap themselves. So we was able to sort of economies of scale by advertising, pass the value to them and wrap some service in. So that was a really nice change. And like I say, it really opened us, and we got in with some customers that were like really keen to partner. And you've done that, what else can you do for us? And then that led on to software, which is probably one of them sort of known. If I look at things now, I always bear in mind those known unknowns. Like I go into a sector and go, there's a lot of stuff here that we don't know. We're just going to have to learn. We'll be really good at this in 2 years, but we're going to have some hard days in the meantime, because software was almost every single software company you meet. One of the founders is a techie. Yeah. None of our founders are techies. So we had to do that difficult journey. And now we're at a really good place with the actual techies we've got, with the people we've got, the experts we've got. So we feel like but it's been a long journey to get there.
Yeah. So over your 25-year career journey with hireful and obviously the previous elements, what are the guiding philosophies or principles that you've used to keep you on track and keep you pushing forward?
I guess one of the things I never really thought about this, but I think I've benefited from is I've never really worked for many companies. I worked for about a year outside of university. Yeah. Before that, it was just in retail. So I've never really had that sort of corporate commercial world. So when I looked at the company, I just did it the way, me and my colleagues, some other founders felt that we should do it. So, we live our values, absolutely, and I think that was tested during COVID. Lots of organizations put all those little signs up on the wall, but, okay, there's a stress test coming of COVID. Now, do you really live your values? And I think one of the things on that corporate side is the level of transparency. We're just really open to our staff. Clearly there'll be certain things we can't tell them, but we tell them as much as we can. We publish our employee engagement survey results on our career site. So if you're thinking of joining us, you can see this is what our staff think of us. We've published them every year. We share them to our staff. We talk about every single comment within that employee engagement survey. We discuss it openly, no matter how difficult it is to maybe hear that someone's not happy or they've got a concern, and we just have to take it on the chin. So definitely transparency, definitely live your values, and we're really data-driven, really into numbers and understanding what's going on and outputs. And then that allows us to be fairly relaxed with staff because we know what each team, what each person's delivering. So if they got a doctor's appointment or if they, need to sort of work from home a little bit more during the school holidays for their kids or whatever, we can be a bit more flexible.
I suppose you couldn't know your unknowns back then. How did you learn? Did you just trial and error, just do it that way?
I think with the software, definitely.
Yeah.
I think there's a naivety that I've got, an optimism that I have. It's nicely offset because I've got 3 people that we run the business. We've got a CEO who joined as a graduate salesperson about 16 years ago. So he's been on an amazing journey, an amazing individual. A good example of just recognising talent. Yeah. And then my other founder is a COO, Steve. So he's looking after, overseeing the software and everything we deliver. He's more naturally pessimistic. So that's great, because he's going to put his head on the pillow at night and think about, what about if this goes wrong? What have we done enough on that? Is there enough covered over here? I'm never going to think of those things. It's just not in my nature. I'm going to be thinking 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the line. So it's a nice balance, but but my optimism allowed me to make that leap, and then hopefully I persuaded him. But I definitely viewed it as a lot easier than it was.
Yeah.
But if you thought it was that difficult, you'd probably never have done it, would you?
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that's our audiences. We're aiming for like aspiring business owners, like people starting their own businesses and going there. The initial step you took, why did you decide to co-found the business rather than going out on your own?
So I originally started the business with my brother, and I was just talking about it a lot. We should start a business. We should do that. Like I saw recruitment agencies, and I thought this is quite easy, and it is quite a simple business, and was able to start and do quite well. It's an interesting example of an industry where there isn't a very big moat. There's nothing that stops. You can build a lot of recruitment agencies. I think something like 80% of them are between 5 to 9 staff. Okay. So many recruitment agencies get to a certain size, and then they lose a couple of staff because they start an agency, and then they start an agency. So yeah, it was just an easy starting point, really. But then ever since then, I wouldn't want to, I think my nature, I struggled during COVID a bit when you had to go home and work on your own every day. I like being around people, and I feel nothing feels better for me than like winning as a team. So yeah, it's not about the individual glory, and there's been so many difficult decisions we've had to make down the years, and we've got a very high trust environment. We can tell each other anything, like in a respectful way. We'll tell each other if we're not getting it done. So I haven't known anything else. There's always been a team. I think it would be really tough to do it as an individual, but I would encourage people. That's me and my nature. Just because if you're on your own, if you can find some co-founders, you have to find really good people you can trust, but if you can, then it's a fantastic way to start, isn't it? You're sharing the risk, you're sharing all those skills. So if you can do it, great, but it's probably the hardest recruitment challenge you'll ever find, is finding that co-founder perhaps. Yeah.
And looking back, obviously you started in recruitment and then you've gone through these pivots and you've kind of explained that, but when you were there at the very beginning, recruitment, did you have any visions of it spiraling and going into other things, or was it always just the plan was set up a recruitment company and see where we get to?
So we started in 99. I went to Internet World in 99. So the original plan for the business was like really internet, but it was a very, very naive approach to like, we could do this and we could do this. And what I didn't know was ridiculous at the time. So we ended up, I might have told my brother we're going to build this amazing internet, like it's all exciting, but actually, and we'll start as a recruitment agency, and then we'll get to that. We never got to those crazy ideas, because I think once we started working on it, we realised they're a little bit out there. But the pivots came, so great.
Did the naivety, did that at the start, not knowing what you know now, did that help you just go and take the risk and take the plunge into starting your own business?
Yeah, and I know most people, I think there's two sides of it. When you're young, you don't have necessarily the family responsibilities, maybe the mortgage and things like that. So you can start a business and you don't have big overheads to hit. So I think great. If you can do that, I would once again say that's the advantage for you. The negative is you don't necessarily have the experience. You don't have the network of contacts. So now, we've got people, friends and family, they're HR directors. When we started off, they was on the graduate management scheme. So there was no point us phoning up our friends from university because they weren't going to give us any business. Yeah. So there's two sides to the coin. So I would also recommend that the more experienced people actually, research it well and find a way. Because I think that there's an awful lot of people that have good ideas, have great skills, never take that leap, and always then feel probably a little bit like they missed an opportunity.
Yeah. And throughout your history, obviously, you've pivoted to new opportunities, and that shows a willingness to innovate. And, how important is innovation to your business, and kind of what does that look like in the day-to-day?
Yeah, I struggle because there's 3 of us in the role. I said our CEO is essentially running a large part of the business, the commercial, the sales side of things. We've got our COOs managing delivery. I get involved quite a lot in marketing in my role as chief helper, putting content out and things like that. But a large part of my role is actually that vision to like, what are we going to be doing? Other people chip into that, but it's my sort of ultimate responsibility. So that's what I need as an individual. I think if you took that away from me and said, look, we're just going to run this business, it's going to look the same in 10 years as it does now, apart from a few minor tweaks, I would struggle because I don't know why, but I'm always looking to create or do something different. I'm always, and I was changing the business too much. Previously was coming up with too many ideas and constant pivots. So it was the wrong end goal. But what I do now is more find inspiration in like a new tool, a new report, a new thing. And that allows me to keep going and feel like I'm really adding value.
Perfect. So let's go into priority. Like in our first year, for me and Harry, 1225, it's our year pretty much now. The one thing we both say we've kind of struggled with is focus, keeping focus and prioritising what we're working on, what is the needle shifter. For you, what's the litmus test in the opportunities that you've worked on? Like, which ways do you tell that this is going to be a good opportunity to work on?
Yeah, so one of the things we do that I definitely recommend is, there's quite a few SMEs use it, is the traction methodology.
Okay.
So we use level 10s to sort of, and we use quarterly meetings where we look at quarterly goals. So if I think of a new idea, which inevitably I will think of at least 5 brilliant ideas every quarter, whether they are upon reflection at the end of the quarter, who knows? So we're never thinking of an idea on its own merits. It's always, there's a limited amount of opportunity to do certain things. Maybe you can only do 2 things. It's like, well, you've got 5 options there.
Yeah.
So when we evaluate where the time should be spent, but knowing that North Star, knowing where you're trying to go and having that really clear can break it down to say, well, which is going to have the biggest impact. And when we have a similar thing with features in our software, and we have an actual matrix now that we're looking towards where we look at, like, we score against it, and it's looking at numbers and saying, well, how many new customers will this win? How much will this reduce, churn of customers? And so we're looking very, not forensically, but asking very specific questions of a feature. Ever since we started doing that, the way features get rated is a lot higher, because you might have one customer who's just like going crazy, like really needs this feature. But when you put it on that matrix, it doesn't score high because we've got like 500 customers. We need to be thinking for everyone, not just for that one shouty customer, unfortunately, which, we rude to shouty customers. Yeah. There's always a few of them about.
Okay, so you've mentioned there about a level 10 meeting.
Yeah.
What is that? What is the structure, and how could it be useful to someone like myself who runs a 4-person agency?
Yeah, and your agency, are you all working in the same room, or are you a little bit remote?
Yeah, a bit of both.
Yeah, okay. So I think it works even better if everyone's remote and you sort of need to let them off and just they come back and show you what they've done with their week. So how it works is it's a set meeting that will be, it can be 60 minutes or 90 minutes, depending on, but it is really structured. You have that time, that's the deadline. The whistle's blown. If it didn't get discussed, it wasn't important enough. It goes to next week. So you have the 5-minute segue, because the meeting can be very efficient. Yeah. So the segue is just, how was your day? How was your weekend? Tell us something positive about what's going on in your life, or personal, professional, whatever. And that just sets things off nicely. Then you're into, we change the order a little bit on ours. We get into the headlines and go, right, what's happened in the business? What do we need to know about? What's good things? We've won these 2 customers. We've done this. We've done that. We've been nominated for an award. Great. Some negatives in there as well as positives, but that's the headlines. They're just like news updates. Then you're into the rocks. I'm probably doing this in the wrong order. So we go from headlines into data. Data scorecards, really interesting. So even if you don't do level 10, I'd encourage people to look at data scorecard, which is just thinking about what are the 10 numbers in the business that will demonstrate that you're going in the right direction. The numbers that sit below the big number, and it's recording them every week, or sometimes every month. I can be a fan of that as well. So you might have like a monthly scorecard, and you go, you look at that every 4 weeks. Because sometimes it's like, oh, we're up, we're down. It's sort of hard to get the direction of travel. So it depends on your business and your numbers. But looking at those numbers on a scorecard and seeing you're making progress, and that can be really positive and really inspiring. You're thinking, I know the bank balance doesn't look great at the moment, but I know we're doing all these things, and that's gonna work through. And then you do the to-dos. Just tasks that have been given out previously, where's everyone at, just making sure people are delivering what they need to deliver. Then you look at your rocks, those quarterly goals. How are you doing? Is there any challenges, any concerns? It's people's opportunity to raise their hand. So we do this at leadership level, also do it at department level as well. So it's a great opportunity for people and more junior people to say, you've given me this big goal and I spoke to the person, but I'm not sure now what to do. And it means also there's no way they can get to the end of the quarter going, well, yeah, but I spoke to the person, didn't know what to do. But you sat in our level 10 13 times in this month, and we said rocks in every time, and you never raised your hand. And I said, does anyone need anything? So it keeps everyone answerable and honest. And then the last one is issues. So you look through and go, right, everyone puts issues on there. So it means you're not getting distracted by stuff during the week, because you think, look, me and you could be having a conversation and be like, well, that's really like for everyone to chip in on. And does it have to be discussed now because I'm in the middle of writing this or doing this thing over here? So it allows you to, you still deal with the urgent stuff, but it allows you to go, right, that's an issue, put it on the level 10. It also means sometimes the conversations, it might be a quick conversation, you think about something, it delves a bit deeper, you go, I think this is level 10, mate.
Okay.
And so it just keeps everything organised and builds a structure, and then people know, and it's amazing how fast our staff have just tuned into it. And they all, you can sit in different departments, in different meetings, and we do there's departments I'm not involved in, and I'll go sit in their level 10, I'll see what's going on. But it's also great for me because it means I can ignore what's going on in certain departments. You know, it's not my responsibility, but I don't have to be, because you can be definitely as an owner too involved in all, and have to be across everything. I'm across everything for 60 to 90, it's about 90 minutes on a Monday from 10:15 to 11:45. I'm across the whole business, and then I focus on my own stuff.
So I suppose you're guided by your customers, you're guided by data. How much does gut feel come into business?
I guess it comes into like, you know, your own evaluation, you know, where you put something down and go, right, I want to put that on the list, I want to talk about it, and then I'm going to try and maybe build the evidence around it, because maybe that's, you go, I think this is a good idea, let me just go find the evidence. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you need to be data driven, don't you? Yeah. So if the evidence isn't there, ideally you find the evidence and then you go, you know, you find the problem and then you go try and find the solution. So yeah, there's been some interesting conversations around AI and stuff like that, because that's just, yeah, it's a brilliant solution, but how do we then actually like use it, which we can talk about in a bit. Yeah.
So well, let's get into it. Let's get into AI. It's obviously the opportunity of our times. As a marketing agency, SEO agency, we've seen all the time now people are using AI to write copy for their websites, for instance, or even starting to produce their own videos, or any element of AI touches really strongly in our area. How have you used it in your business?
Not massively at the moment.
Okay.
So just, I think it's important that I'd say you need to be a user. So we're building it into our business now. So the whole company will be using AI. So we use ChatGPT, we use the Teams edition, we build custom GPTs. We're building the AI into our actual software. I do see it initially for a software company in the first 2 years as an opportunity. And I think it's actually the same for most companies, because it will make you more productive. It will increase the number of services you can deliver, things like this, which is great. But you've also got to recognize that it's also a threat. There's businesses that have already gone. I mean, if you was in like, I don't know, language translation or something, I guess the writing's on the wall. So you've also got to be preparing, which is what we're thinking about now, is how do we ensure that someone just doesn't come along with a brilliant, you know, we're looking at the big guys as well, like Microsoft, and, you know, we know that they would love to build in their little ecosystem a recruitment software that just does everything for you and can publish the role to LinkedIn and all these things, and maybe offer it for just a couple of pounds a month. How do we make sure that we stay relevant and we've still got some extra added value above and beyond that allows us to charge thousands of pounds a year for our service, which is still pretty cost effective against our competitors.
Yeah.
But how do we ensure that the industry just doesn't go? Because it is going to, so much is going to change. So that's what we're really working on at the moment. Interesting.
Do you give any advice to your customers about AI? Have you seen AI creep into their businesses and how they're using it?
Well, one of the benefits of like doing loads of research about AI is I can do loads of webinars about AI, and lots of customers are at that cusp. I think what I say to them is, if you work in HR recruitment, someone's going to knock on your door from your business and say, what are you doing with AI at some point in the next 18 months, I guess? And you probably want to have an answer for them. So you need to be across things, thinking about things. So I would say to people, have at least one newsletter. I think I've got a few newsletters you can probably put them in the comments that people can follow that are fairly easy. Well, some easy, some a bit more technical, but find one resource that's going to keep you up to date with what's going on within that area. If AI is critical to your job or critical to your business, I think it is, and it will be for a lot of people. And then you think you need to understand the legislation around it a little bit as well, because that's going to impact on your business. But also then think about your approach to it. So there's things like in the recruitment world that we're looking at, things like just transparency around AI. If you're going to use AI, are you going to tell your candidates? Because I think most job seekers, if they see you using AI, their initial reaction is going to be, oh God, that's terrible. I've read these stories about AI. You're going to reject me, and it's not going to be an improved experience. Or, oh, they're not going to go, oh wow, there's a much greater reduced chance of bias now. I'm much happier. Or I can get the process done so much faster, so I'll learn about whether I'm a good fit or not much faster. They're not going to jump to that. So there's an education piece. We don't know how it's going to land with job seekers. Hopefully organizations will be upfront and say, this is how we're using AI. But also then, the way we're using it the way we're building it into our recruitment software is that when it screens an applicant, it will provide an easy to understand summary saying, this is why you were screened. We had these 3 or 4 questions from the customer that they wanted us to screen against. They thought they were good and reasonable questions. And then this is what we found when we looked at your anonymized CV. So there's that explainability piece as well. So you can then go, and also it means you can explain your AI usage. And this applies to almost anything. It's not a black box. Yeah. You can explain that to the rest of the business. So I think there's if you're a business, there's lots of competitors going to put AI into their system. If you can put it into your system and you can stress to your customers that you've got explainability and you can help them with transparency and that they can then feel comfortable. It's not just some clever black box machine learning and you're not going to use a load of phrases. You just have it in a really easy to understand way and it delivers that business need. I think you're probably going to win a lot of friends and people are going to feel a lot more comfortable about an uncomfortable subject.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, again, everything you've said about hireful, about what you're trying to do, being helpful, it leads me back to a concept that we always say, me and Harry, like people buy from people and AI kind of almost erodes that feeling. But there is a way that you can use AI to promote the message, I suppose, of people buy from people and being that helpful kind of character. And I suppose that's kind of what you're saying there, isn't it? That people might not have found that kind of balance between AI and the human-led, because again, recruitment, I suppose, is fully human-led at this stage.
Yes, if you can present it, if you can show them that this will improve your candidate experience, this will improve your ability to recruit a more diverse audience, and it will make your whole business more efficient. Then and it gives recruiters more time with candidates, because so much of recruitment they don't actually have the time to speak to people, to feedback. And AI just provides that opportunity, I think. So it takes away some of the work. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's phases of AI coming later, which will be more worrisome for the recruiters, unfortunately. And that's an interesting conversation. But the initial wave, I think, is definitely going to be really helpful and make them work on the more higher value tasks.
More worrying because it will get rid of jobs,
I think there's the potential for it to erode jobs and change jobs, and you'll be able to do more. It's one of those, and it will change up the skills you're looking for as well as an organisation, because are you going to need a data analyst, or are you going to need someone who's got like critical thinking, who can take the insights and then work out what you need to do? So it's going to change the world of work quite a lot. And I wouldn't want to go too far into that, because I think it's a reasonable statement to say that. I think it would be unreasonable for me to say I know just how it's going to do it. Maybe some other clever people do, but I just know there's going to be some change. I can see what's going to maybe happen in the next 12 months. Beyond that, I can see a direction of travel, but I don't know how everyone's going to react to it.
Fair, interesting,
including governments and legislation and everything else, because there will be, just like we saw during COVID, once jobs were under threat, there was a huge global government reaction to that with furlough. So, there'll be similar, I would have thought, legislation protecting workers on some differing level.
Fair. And that's the recruitment side. Are you seeing the impact of AI from the candidates and how they're using it? I'm sure that a lot of candidates are using AI to write their CVs, write covering letters and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I just said, job seekers have this it's sort of a slightly negative view to AI. And I think recruiters, we've seen this from several of our customers, and I think it's a normal thing. They have a reaction to the AI-enabled candidate. So candidates don't like the AI-enabled company at the moment, the recruitment department, and then in reverse, HR departments, recruitment departments are very worried about the AI-enabled candidate. I question whether they should do, because if someone's using AI, I think you've just got to evaluate what are you screening for. If you're asking a fairly generic, open-ended question, let's say you're Tesco and you ask, tell me what every little helps means to you. Okay, it's such a generic thing. You could throw that into ChatGPT and say, give me a good answer to this, and then give it a bit of context, and it would give you a good answer. And we've had customers using, not Tesco, but we've had customers using similar questions. Yeah. Now, if you frame that in a different way and said, tell us about your experience in customer service, give me examples of where you've done X and Y and Z. Well, ChatGPT, you could write something and ChatGPT could maybe smooth it out for you, but it's still your experience.
Yeah.
I also think there's other things. So you see it on some notifications. I've seen it on the police service, on a few adverts for them. They've got do not use AI to help your application. The police use AI quite a lot, and they'll use AI. The amount of data they've got to sort of check into fraud and all these other things that they're covering, which fraud is booming, obviously. They're using AI loads. So you're going to an AI-enabled workplace, but we don't want you to use AI. But also, you think about it like this. I'm a real bandwagon now. But,
no, it's good.
How many people use a professional maybe to write a CV? And that's not even a fair playing field, because a lot of people can't afford a professional to write a CV. I've never seen on a job spec, do not use a professional, or if we see anyone that's had a professionally written CV, we're going to exclude them. But yet you can write a CV using ChatGPT. And then, you want... So I also think the last point I'll say on this is, how many candidates want to work for an organisation that is basically anti-AI? Because that'll be one thing you think about. If you've worked for an organisation and they're using loads of AI and you can deliver your job really efficiently, it's the equivalent of working in a bank where there's loads of computers and then go to another bank and they've just got loads of filing cabinets. Who's going to want to make that move?
Yeah, exactly. I suppose that leads me on to a question quickly about like different generations. Obviously, you've been at the forefront of your business for 25 years. You've seen people come into your business and also people like applying for jobs with some of your clients. Like, is there a difference between, baby boomers right through to millennials and Gen Z and working habits and the way that they apply and look for jobs? And have you had to incorporate that into your product?
I wouldn't say incorporate it into our product. I think organizations need to think about how they're presenting themselves. So we look at, one of the things that our software does is it compares the diversity of your audience. You can compare it against the census data. So I always use our data when I'm showing this on a webinar, because clearly I'm not going to use an individual customer's data. They wouldn't appreciate that. And one of the things that we don't do very well on is age. So we look at the diversity of Bedford and North Hants, and it's fairly broad for the age groups. There's a good mixture in each sort of age category. Ours has a massive bias towards younger people. We're a software company. All the pictures are people in hoodies and stuff on the website. We need to maybe change up that a little bit. We have got older people. I'm one of them, but even people older than me in the business, and we need to make sure they're represented. And we need to maybe think about benefits and stuff to make sure that's attractive to that audience. So I think all organizations need to do that. The other thing that I have seen as well, which is the changing nature of work, is a lot of the Gen Z audience apparently are quite happy to job hop. They'll see that like they need to do it in order to advance their career. Also because of the cost of living, if they ever want to buy a house, they need to like get to a certain salary. And I don't really have a huge issue with that. And I think there could be the changing nature of work, could see more work become a bit more short term in some areas. So yeah, but I suppose if people move more recruitment, isn't it? It's like estate agents are always happy when the housing market's booming, and when no one's moving house, the estate agents are very very bored and lonely. Yeah,
it's such a great point. It reminds me of another mistake that me and Harry made in our first year. We got our first hire wrong. The wrong timing, the wrong position. We went with something, it didn't work out. Probably a common mistake a lot of businesses first make, but why is the first hire so important for a business?
Well, the first hire could be your co-founder, which we spoke about. So, but your actual first salaried employee, that's you might not have the structure. You've got to think about where they're coming from. I think that applies for any business. If you're an SME and you're hiring an FD or something from a FTSE 100 or something, then it can be very different. You've got to really struggle to think, are they going to fit in here? Do they know what they're walking into? So I think, you've got to really think about the structure. You've got to really think about the culture and make sure that, if you're working from your bedroom and they're going to be working from their bedroom and there is no company office, then. So I think maybe with that first hire, I think there's a good argument. I can tell a story about how we got this totally wrong, but I think there is a good argument to use your network. And we see that all the time. Use your network, and you're making a hire with someone you really know. They really know you. They're willing to sort of, work without benefits or whatever it is, because they believe in you and they believe in what you're building. So I think if it's that first hire is completely external to you, I think the risk level just is probably too big.
That's a good tip. How did you get your first hire right, and B, where are they now?
So if we started our business in '99, I think if you could ask me that for anything, the first website, the first hire, they would all be a disaster. It's not quite the first hire, because the first hire was actually some of my friends.
Okay.
They didn't work out. Nice guys, didn't work out. But our current COO, so I started the business with my brother. So Steve, our current COO, I call him co-founder because really he did co-found the business. So the business went about a year and a half long as a recruitment agency, and then we hit it was IT recruitment agency, a massive IT recession, and we had to scale it all back just to me and Steve. So I always think that we did actually found it. We refound the business in some cases. But the first time we interviewed Steve, so me and my brother, we thought a recruitment consultant should just be after money. And they should be more money oriented, and that's why we declined Steve.
Oh, really?
So Steve, Steve took that on the chin, and we rehired him later on, and he was a fantastic recruitment consultant and a fantastic founder. So he should give me. He's the sort of guy who does give me a lot of grief for various things that I do wrong. He winds me up on stuff. He should give me a lot more grief for that mistake because it's pretty bad.
25 years in business, you've obviously got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge from mistakes that you made. How do you share that with your staff?
We're quite transparent, so people can, and there's a clear management structure, but people can ask anything, and if people need help or they, or they want to ask an embarrassing story about something, then I'll just, I'm quite an open. I think that what's interesting with the founders, they tend to be, the culture comes from them, clearly. So if you're an open, transparent, helpful person, then that's the culture. So that's definitely what. It just flows through our company, so hopefully people feel like they can talk to you about anything. Perfect.
That struck a chord with me. Obviously, we're at the start of our journey. We're a team of 4. We want to grow. Like, as a co-founder to co-founder, like, are there any other tips you'd give me to like think about establishing a culture from day one?
Yeah, I think there'll be a few inflection points around hiring. And that's almost like where the gut comes in as well, which unfortunately gut instinct, we talk a lot about unconscious bias in training, so you've got to be very careful with gut instinct, because gut instinct could just be unconscious bias, like I really like this guy because he's a big Arsenal fan or something. So you need to be really thinking over what your mind is saying to you. But I also think there's times where you think this is a really talented person, but they're not right for us. They're not they're going to cause problems, or there's a huge risk, or so I think avoiding those, particularly in a small team, I think that's really key. And what happens is once you sort of build people who buy into the culture, then they become those culture champions as well. So it just sort of flows. And I'm always amazed. I mean, our employee engagement survey results through COVID and after COVID, and financially difficult economic situations where we've not been able to be as generous with staff pay and things like this as well. So I'm always amazed at the actual employee engagement survey results. I'm always a bit nervous for them, and it's really nice to see that people really enjoy working there, and hopefully that stays for a long, long time. Yeah.
Does that give you a sense of pride to read the surveys?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I don't have a lot of time. I don't tend to reflect on it so much. I think it'll be more a case of maybe 10, 15 years down the line, if I'm retired or something, and someone comes up to me and says, I really enjoyed it, and we talk about it, and those types of things, because I think it is almost like relief. It's like, because we're a growing company. We put a lot of money into our software development, so there isn't, we don't have loads of money to throw around for things. We'll be very careful on, how we organize benefits and these things. So you always want to do more. So it's just in that environment, I'm just mindful that, like, are we doing enough?
Yeah, fair. And you've obviously spent 25 years running your business, but what keeps you motivated to keep going?
I think we're on the cusp of something. I might have thought that a couple of times before.
Yeah.
I think a lot of founders think
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I do genuinely feel like, we know the AI thing's going to land. We feel like we're in a good place with it in our approach. We're doing some big focus around vertical markets. I just feel like we're in a good place to like really grow, maybe like double the size of the business in the next 3 years. And with a software business, you need to put a certain amount of infrastructure and people and development teams that cost a lot of money in place. And then you get to a certain point and you can double the size of your customer base, and you have to add a few extra staff here and there, but it's not a huge burden.
Yeah.
So I think we're hopefully on the cusp of that part of the journey, which is the bit where all the hard work pays off, I guess.
Perfect. I like that. So change of pace now. Let's go to some quick fire questions. And the first question is, what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
I think the best piece I could ever give anyone would be get a mentor. I really think that, particularly if your mum, dad have never run a business. My mum and I didn't really know my dad, so my mum had never run a business, so I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I desperately needed a mentor. But I think for any business, getting a mentor, if your dad runs a business, great, or your mum does, but you might also not want to hear too much from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, any sort of mentor would be particularly someone who's been there and done it. And you know what? Someone who's been there and done it is retired. They love giving feedback. They love, helping people, particularly a young person.
Yeah. What's the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
Buying the Traction book and reading that. So yeah, and that we just said and just changed the whole structure of our business, and everyone adopted it and bought into it pretty quickly.
Okay, because it was that simple to implement.
It wasn't difficult to implement. We were doing some of the things already, and I think once you explained it to staff, and if you communicate well as a business, then great. I think at a certain size, I think if you're a bit smaller, you can still do it, and then it's embedded.
Yeah.
But if you are the bigger you are, the harder it will be to do it. It was probably about 50 staff when we did it. What you want to take from the Traction book is, if there's something you don't believe in, just park it. Don't do that yet. Reflect on it in 6 months or 12 months. Don't start doing something you didn't. And there's a couple of things in there we went, that's not for us. But largely, we looked at each area, and it includes things on recruitment and stuff. And we looked at the recruitment area, was like, get it, want it, capability to do it, and all these things. And we were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it just gave us the framework, of how to look at each area of the business, and how to run, tight meetings that are an hour that are data focused and decision focused, and just keep everyone in the business answerable to their objectives and everyone driving forward to that overall sort of, goal or mission. So it just provides that structure. So everyone's working towards the goal.
Talking about goals, like how do you structure goal setting if you do, and what's the benefit of that?
So that's all really within the whole level 10 framework, so the Traction framework. Yeah. So if I think of an idea, like say we park it, so we have a quarterly meeting where we look at, right, what are the goals we're going to set? What are the quarterly tasks we're going to take on, the sort of mini projects? And then if I'm not taking on some because I've got 3 or 4 maybe, then there's a couple of others that are quite important but not important enough. Who are they going to get passed down to? So we reflect on things every quarter. And make sure that we then decide what are the next, I wouldn't say tactical steps we need to do. So those little mini projects. And then, in each weekly meeting, it's like, well, you're discussing things, agreeing the to-dos, and just and keeping everyone answerable to those things. So, yeah, the goal setting really comes probably more on the quarterly meetings. And then we'll do sort of, we'll do strategy days and strategy half days to sort of look at the bigger picture and maybe realign that sort of North Star a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously throughout this episode you mentioned you have a lot of ideas. Does it help you kind of keep those ideas in check and keep you focused?
It definitely helps me stop distracting my colleagues with new ideas, with an email that although they might disagree with that. The best thing is when you get an idea this time of the quarter, which is right at the end of the quarter, because you can be discussing it next week. Yeah. The worst thing is when you get it 4 weeks into the quarter. Yeah. And occasionally we whilst we stick to the Traction methodology, occasionally we're going, no, that's too big. You need to just do it. Just get on it. Everyone's in agreement. Just change your rocks, and you are just changing the direction of travel, which goes against the methodology, I guess. But as long as you're not doing that all the time, because otherwise you question, are you really doing the methodology? So yeah, lots of ideas. Most of the time they get parked and they just get reviewed as a whole.
What are you like as well as a person when you've got these goals, you've got your quarterly goals set, you're working towards each of them? I find when I get goals set and they go up on our whiteboard in our office, and it's like, right, I've got to get them done because I don't want to let down the team, but it's like almost a mini competition. I want to get my goals sorted and done for the team. Do you feel the same, or do you have a different approach?
One of the level 10, so one of the traction methodologies is having like the quarterly meeting to the company as well. Yeah. And the leadership team will show the rocks that they're working on and the rocks that they've done last quarter and stuff. So, and we're now building out Notion as a business, and we're going to make everything available on there. So everyone will be able to see everyone's rocks and goals and see their progress against it. I'm okay with it. If I miss a rock because I'm a couple of weeks late because something's got distracted, I'm not going to beat myself up over it because I know it's getting delivered. If I deliver it a little bit late and it doesn't have if there's not a deadline for it, then I'm okay with it. But I think of all the people in the leadership team, it definitely helps me because without those rocks, I wouldn't have the discipline to stay focused on those things. I'm like most people who think of ideas and stuff, not the best completer finisher. What's
your favourite failure?
Apart from not hiring Steve. So when we started the advertising side of the business, our CEO Sean and some other of the sales team at the time went in and started selling to big companies. We had Tesco, we had Barclaycard, because there wasn't not too many companies doing what we were doing, and they needed help with online recruitment. That was all very exciting, but it was a complete lack of product market fit. Our actual customer base now is typically between about 100 to about 2,000 staff, and we know why we work with them, and we're a really good fit. So if Tesco watch this podcast and contact us, we're happy for the call, but they're not going to be a great fit for us, and we're all about software, so they're not a great fit for our software. So I think it's really just we got very distracted on selling advertising and not knowing it was you're selling it, you're winning a customer, you're losing a customer the following month. So it's not knowing what is a customer that you're really adding value for that you can then scale and go find more of those customers. So I think we didn't know. I'm not beating up the sales team, beating up me. I should have been providing more direction. We just didn't know. One of them known unknowns.
Fair. But then that failure, did that help towards contributing to your exact audience?
So we've got a few competitors, and very few of them talk about like, this is our market, this is what we do. We sell to companies in this sort of space. So we frame it because it's like 100 to 2,000. There's no obvious category. It's not SME. SMB is a phrase that's sort of used, but nobody really understands it. So we just come up with like everyday organizations, and we just frame it like that. And then we tell people what that is. It's not teams of like huge big recruitment teams, huge big recruitment budgets. It's so if that sounds like you, this is what our training's all about, and all of our content. This is what our service is all about, and our software. So we were very clear, and so I think it really did help us to sort of say, right, this is what we focus on. And actually, that come out of reading the Lean Startup book.
Okay.
Because that was really, really interesting. Even though at the time we were 15 years in or something, we weren't a startup. It was mind blowing because it was just all about the winner of the race is not the person who generates the most money, as in signing up Tesco and things like this. Yeah. The winner of the race is the person who figures out how to scale their business. So you sort of, it could be a very small customer you get, but if you can sign up one of them every week, you're gonna get somewhere.
So that's really interesting. Are there any further principles from the Lean Startup that you've kind of used over time?
Yeah, I mean, the Lean Startup is almost it's a really old book now. And I think it's Eric Ries, I think that might be the author, who's wrote several others since then. But there's lots of stuff in it that's become just common nature in the software, like MVP for minimal viable product and things like this. So there's lots of stuff that he has not been afraid of failure. So like build something, put it out there and see what the reaction is, rather than just sort of pontificate over something and never release it. Particularly if you're a small business, if you haven't, you've not got a lot to lose. You don't have a reputation. Guess what? If you're a one-person business and you put out a piece of software and it's garbage, no one's going to care or know. So you'll just come out with something new in 6 months and learn from that. So it was very much about the process, the learning, and at the time for us, we were just selling to everyone and trying to sell to everyone, and not really understanding why we weren't going forward. Like a HR manager would come into a new company, not fully understand what we do. And the reality is we weren't embedded. We weren't delivering enough value, and we didn't have enough differentiation from the other providers in the marketplace who eventually did. There was many more providers. So hence we would lose as many customers as was winning. We were just going round and round. And then software occurred to us, and we thought, if we can sell software into these businesses, we're going to be a lot more sticky. It wasn't as easy as that, but that was the right answer.
That's really interesting. On a previous podcast, Leo Harrison actually said about keeping your customers kind of sticky, and that's how you grow. So I suppose with the product, like, how long did it take you to realize, okay, we need to get the right market for us and how we can service them? Was it the fact that you changed the software and that made it easier, or were you still thinking about your audience and working out which was the best place to target?
No, it was simply the change to software, and I think we were forced to find that out because, when you can see you're winning customers every month, but you're losing a lot of customers every month, and they drift away, and you're doing a good job, and they still move, and because person changes. It was just I've read it somewhere. We were just an interchangeable service. You could just change us out. There was no cost of changing us as a service. So if there's a better business phrase for that type of scenario. But whereas software, there's always a cost. It's always painful to change software. Yeah. So that was just the obvious move to make. So we just took a while to sort of execute it well. But then we're not software people. We weren't back then. We are now, sort of.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone starting their own business?
Yeah, apart from the just do it piece, because I think too many people have sort of ideas, and I would also, if you have one idea, I would like just work that idea. Talk to people, refine it. Don't be too focused on it. I'll be trying to think of I'll be thinking about 3 or 4 ideas you might do. I definitely would suggest, if you're young, go in and learn a sector. Go in and learn about what goes on in an area. I'm also a little bit skeptical of. See, I think when you look at it, you've got to look for the easier opportunity. If you go after something like you're going to be working with celebrities and Instagram and things like this, great. If you've got a brilliant idea in that space, there's also millions of people thinking about that sector. Yeah. What are the sectors where, it's a little bit more niche and, there isn't millions of people thinking about? Because, I might want to play in the NBA. I'm 6 foot tall. It's probably, I don't know how many people 6 foot tall that are born in the UK have ever played in the NBA. It's probably not many. So find those opportunities where there's a good chance of you executing well. Absolutely. And I think as well, the just do it piece, it's always scary on the precipice. Like this week's been quite a big week for me personally. Like I've done 3-4 recordings now without Harry, who would be with me, and we'd have this discussion, and it reminded me of the fact that, like, if you're standing on the precipice, it's a lot scarier looking down, but then actually when you're jumping, it's fine. It's a lot easier and a lot nicer. So I suppose that goes to that message. And I suppose that's what building's about as well for aspiring business owners. We want to encourage more people to start their own business because it has been pretty life-changing over the past year for me as well. So what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? Do you know, I've thought about this before, and I don't necessarily. I'm going to give a rubbish answer. I enjoyed the journey. I think there's so much. So I wouldn't want to cheat. I wouldn't want to cheat code. Like I wouldn't want to know the date of the election in May, for example, and be doing a bet on July the 4th, like many of our politicians are now. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to know the cheat code. Because I think now, if you had all this experience, it would be an absolute cheat code. It'd be so easy to build a great business. Because we've lived through the internet and all those things. It's a bit like 20 years time. If you knew what AI was going to do, you could go back now and you could really deliver an amazing business. So I would enjoy the journey. I would say, because I was very young and I didn't have a mentor keeping me, or a co-founder keeping me like, this is where we're going. I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted to run a business and make money. Young people have a bit of a superpower, and it's basically their age. So people want to help people. And if you're young, if you're 18, 19, 21, 22, even 23, 24, and you've started a business, you can reach out to so many business owners, old farts like me or 47. If a 21-year-old reaches out to me and says, "Hi, Adrian, I'm doing this. I'm a young person. I'm just started this business. I can see you've done that. I wonder whether you might be free for an hour to give me an hour of your time." There's not loads of people I give an hour of my time to unless I'm thinking, well, they're in our sector and they need help with recruitment. So I've got to be precious of my time. I will respond to those things because it's a young person and they're starting. It's a bit novel, it's a bit interesting. Now, that same scenario when you're 30 and you've worked for 6-7 years for a bank or something, and you started out on your own, you don't have the opportunity. You're not novel or new or interesting. And also, how many awards are out there? How many grants are out there for young people to start businesses and the Young Business Person of the Year? I've seen the people that do it and do it well, and it really there's a real advantage to them. I'm not saying there isn't a disadvantage by being young and inexperienced, but they also have a bunch of other advantages they really need to lean into. I'd say this to almost anyone, but definitely with that young person example, it's ask more. So, LinkedIn's out there. It's a fantastic tool, gives you access to all, people from so many different industries, and it's easy to find that person that you might want to speak to, that perfect person, and you just need to go in and ask. So have a script set up to say, hey, look, this is me, be a bit humble. I'm a 21-year-old. There's lots of stuff I don't know. You don't have to be too flattering, but you could say, I'm sure, you've probably learned a lot along the way. And, whatever it is you're after, is it an hour of their time? Is it, do you need them to do your podcast or whatever it is? Yeah. So whatever it is you're after, use your youth as your superpower, because that will be a bit of a novelty. And, also think about it. People in business that are in their 40s and 50s, they've got young kids. If they're maybe similar age to yourself, or they look upon that, you're doing them the favor, because they're going to walk out of that hour's meeting feeling like, I've just really helped someone. I feel so good. You might think they're helping you. You're helping them to, when they come home and sit opposite their husband or wife for the evening and talk about someone over dinner, they'll probably talk about meeting you and how interesting it was and how different it was, because they haven't met a 21-year-old who's running a business in a while.
If you were starting today from zero, what would you do?
I think if I was starting today, I'd definitely be looking at AI.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of opportunity out there. I'd really try and understand, one sector really well. And I'd be thinking about where I can build a defensible position around AI. So where can I go and get data and work with customers, maybe provide them a service. In return, I'm getting a lot of data about how they operate and how, the obvious thing for us about how they recruit. And I'd be looking at that, thinking 2-3 years down the line, can I really build a strong vertical market, a strong niche, and then be impregnable to whatever comes down the line, and then you're just adding on more and more services.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like recruitment so much. I'd probably just do recruitment, but I think it's nice to look at other areas as well, bearing in mind the known unknowns.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the practical side of that, you said go out and get data. If the option was there to go and approach the sector industry that you've chosen to kind of specialize in, would you suggest to people that they do work for free to get that data in return, or would you be looking for payment straight away?
I mean, it depends on the individuals and their circumstances, obviously. I think working for free is how scale. I'll be looking for something maybe a bit more scalable than that, because working for free could be good. You could actually go in and work with a company and try to understand the problem, and you get, a couple of days here or something, you're starting to get a real good exposure to understanding some of their challenges. So that could be useful. I would probably be trying to find some sort of tool or something they can use that I could put in. I mean, whether that's a chat bot, you look at some of the stuff that really does scale. It's not very expensive. Could you build a chat bot, put that on their website, and then everyone's interacting with it? You're getting all the data from how people are interacting. Then you go to the next company and say, look, I know all the questions that people are going to ask. Let's go and get a data set built. So you've answered all those questions. And you've got a really good experience, and it's only going to cost you X. And then your next 10 customers down the line, you're like, I've got all these customers. I'm an expert in this. You need to pay a lot more. So you can sort of see how it scales by, for example, just having the data of what questions people are asking a chatbot.
Really interesting. If you only had 2 hours to work a day, what would you do in those 2 hours?
So, okay, if it was a well-established business like mine, I'd do a level 10 meeting, it takes an hour, I'd achieve a lot, and I'd probably in advance of that be researching, the product, the area. So I could come in and, because obviously in 2 hours, how can you deliver the biggest impact? It's by making decisions, updating people, giving them a better direction. You're not going to be a doer. The doers are going to be, in your business. So I think a lot of people can work like that and do sort of scale back their involvement, and the business really runs well. I might struggle to do that, but I'm sure my golf handicap would improve if I did. If I just had 2 hours, imagine the other scenario, if I hadn't started a business, I'm trying to start a business, I'm working the day and I've just got 2 hours, I'd be just once again looking at something that's scalable. How can I win a customer in 2 hours for a service that I don't have to, to largely touch? It delivers for them, and that side of things. Is it like build them a website and, they're happy, and, people with websites, they just tend to be, the website's there, it's doing its job, and they're paying what they're paying every month. And then that might be scalable, hopefully to the point where you're thinking maybe there's a purpose to it. So you're saying, I actually want to build a web design business and do all this, or maybe it's always going to be 2 hours, and maybe you're a busy parent or something. It's just, I have a 2 hours a week business. I guess the one thing we've not touched on is we always have this, particularly as males, I want to build a business to dominate the world type of thing. Whereas actually, if you think about, what your original aspiration was, maybe you're thinking about leaving a job because you want a better work-life balance. It might be, I want a business that pays the mortgage and lets me work 2 hours a week. If that's the case, great. Just write it down and remember it. When someone asks you to do a couple more hours, you just say no.
Yeah. But final question then, and this is actually one that George, the producer, asked me yesterday, just off the cuff. Like, have you got a favourite quote that you kind of visualise or think about?
I could see the benefit in it. Yeah. I don't, but I could totally see the benefit in that methodology. I'm quite a driven person, so I don't have to sort of, see what, was it Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take or something. So I could totally see the benefit to it, particularly if it gave you not just the work harder, but the actual bit on focus, like what that work harder really looks like. Yeah. So I'd encourage that if you feel like it helps your mindset.
What's the one thing that helps you be motivated when you're not motivated?
Unfortunately, it'd be simple things like the structure of our team, because I'm I'm answerable. My numbers go on a sheet every week. And my rocks are there, my quarterly goals, and did you achieve them? Did you not achieve them? So I can't. I can maybe. It's the summer now. I might have a week off here, or I might play golf and take an afternoon off work and stuff. I can do all that, great. But ultimately, I can do only a bit of that because I've got to get on and deliver. Yeah. So it's a good structure. It keeps you honest, because, particularly if there's multiple founders and you maybe people have personal situations in their life and they all can't work at different pace, but it does keep you answerable and keep you honest.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.